What's up? What's up? This your boy JG, back with another video on music tips and reviews with JG. Appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Always appreciate the support. Tell your mother, your father, your sister, brother to subscribe to my channel, Music Tips and Reviews with JG. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate it. And so, as y'all, may have known, Prince and Michael Jackson, they always had a strong head about the things that was going on in the music industry, especially close to, when they, had passed away, may they rest in peace. But they had some strong words, about the music industry, when they were alive, things, conflicts, they had against the music industry. And as we all know, there was a threat, to the music industry because of how powerful they were. They was their own machine, their own huge branding, not just one country, but the whole world, was on their shoulders as far as influence. So many people were influenced by Prince, and so many people were influenced by Michael Jackson. So we're gonna check out this clip. We're gonna check it out. I thought I'll show this clip about Michael Jackson's view, especially around when he created his last album, Invincible. So we're gonna check this out. So let's check it out.
The tradition of great performers and I really want you to hear what I have to say. The tradition of great performers from.
And the thing about Michael, he always studied, the greats, from Jackie Wilson to James Brown, and he's always been a student of the game.
Sammy Davis Jr. to James Brown.
Yep. He
to
said
Jackie Wilson.
Wow.
To Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
Gene Kelly.
And they were all his
the story's
influences.
usually
So
the same though. These guys work really hard at their craft, but the story ends the same.
Yeah.
They usually are broken, torn, and usually just sad.
Yeah.
And the story is very.
And that's what I felt about Michael Jackson at the time. After heard his last few years, he was very depressed. Things were happening to him in the industry that he didn't really like, and so he was so down. The allegations about him with the kids, the children, really tore him apart, and so he just expressing his anger, against the music industry. He owned like half of Sony ATV, Michael Jackson, publishing, and they still, when he tried to release his album Invincible, the powers that be, gave him a hard time.
Sad in the end, because the companies take advantage of them.
Yeah.
They really do. And Sony.
And so during this time, he had a big thing against Sony, especially promoting his last album, like I said, Invincible. And so he's going to get into all of that, about the war he have, with Sony.
Sony, being the artist that I am at Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony, several billion, and they really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing, and it usually is, but they never thought that this performer myself would outthink them.
Yeah. So he's really expressing what he's been doing. he often worked with producers and worked out a deal where as far as publishing, he's taught great producers like Rodney about publishing, the publishing world. And Rodney often talks about that, how he helped out Rodney during the making of Invincible, teaching him how to own publishing, how to do this and do that. And they don't know, they think Michael is just an entertainer about music and dancing, but he knows more about the business than most artists, even today. Michael.
Let them get away with what they're trying to do, because now I'm a free agent.
Let me rewind it a little bit.
We can't let them get away with what they're trying to do, because now I'm a free agent.
And so this is incredible. It's kind of them going ahead of their time, because now a lot of artists are realizing that they don't really need a record label. They don't need a major record label. A lot of artists doing their stuff independently and going through their own distribution and stuff like that. And so him saying that, it's kind of like him being ahead of his time, during those early 2000s and so forth like that.
I just owe Sony one more album. It's just a box set, really. It's with 2 new songs, which I've written ages ago. Because every album that I record, I write, like, literally, I'm telling you the truth, I write at least 120 songs every album I do.
And so, for your new artists, and Chris Brown is kind of in that boat. They create so many songs for an album, and they narrow it down to a certain amount of songs. Chris Brown, he keeps like 30 songs on his album. So he said he pump out 100 songs, and they break it down to only a few songs for the album.
So I can do the box set and just give them any 2 songs. So I'm leaving Sony a free agent.
And I think during that time that was a good move, because the way they were really promoted Invincible was really bad. Honestly, I felt Invincible wasn't his best album, but still it had some great songs up there, especially during the beginning of the album. The end was kind of shaky, but I think most of that, the beginning of the album was incredible. So
owning half of Sony.
And like I said earlier, he owned half of Sony, ATV.
So I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them.
So that means he owned like Babyface, a lot of Babyface stuff. Eminem, we all heard about that. A lot of stuff. Sony is a huge machine, within the music industry, especially publishing and distribution. They own a lot.
And they're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, Yeah,
you just gotta do what you gotta do.
Tell him! Say it, Michael! Tell the story!
But, so, the way they get revenge is to try and destroy my album.
Yeah, like I said, Invincible, should have did better.
But But I've always said, you know, good art never dies.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know, it's just crazy how these record labels do these big artists. You know, they've made so much money for these labels, and you know, these labels get so greedy because it's a lot of artists on the label that, you know, doesn't have quite the best art, you know, as far as, you know, quality. And artists like Michael, you know, they created great art over the years, and they treat them like crap. And so it's good that Michael, you know, artists like Michael really, you know, had woken up early in his career about, you know, record labels. And so
thank you. I love Unbreakable. You know.
And we're gonna get into you know, what Prince, you know, had to say about, you know, the music industry. So let's check this out as soon as I bring it up. Appreciate y'all for watching. We're gonna bring this up.
Such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me.
And Prince was, you know, the same way. He was more about ownership. But in Prince's case, you know, you can really tell he deserved it because he wrote, produced, you know, did all the instruments and stuff like that. As far as you know, all of his albums, he had tons of albums, and he produced a lot, you know, of the album himself.
That said, the companies felt otherwise, and they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, you know, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much.
Yeah, and you know, that's the realization. You know, these record labels know that these artists are really learning, you know, the real side of these industries. You know, it's like a loan. You know, you get your advance, you know, from the label, and you owe them back. You know, you don't keep. You know, they call it a recoup. You know, you gotta recoup, you know, all that, you know, that you got from these labels, you know, from your album sales, you know, all the things you do as far as, you know, tours and stuff like that, things you buy, you know, your assets, you know, you gotta pay it back. And you know, Prince is one of those who realized, and even schooled a lot of artists like DMX. DMX said, you know, he taught him about ownership and stuff like that. And so it's a lot to go with it.
It's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship.
Wow. And that's smart. He said even, you know, FedEx and, you know, things like UPS, they don't even own the things that they ship. And that's true. You know, especially like distribution and, you know, these labels, you know, they shouldn't be able to own all of your music if you create, you know, your own music.
You know, right? Because ultimately it keeps us apart, and it keeps the people in power in charge of us. So ultimately we're going to have to learn how to be together and become one people. What I've been doing recently is studying the scriptures as deep as I can, so that that's what gives me the optimism. And I would advise anybody, if you want to feel like there's some hope in this joint, I mean, pick up the book and like read it.
And, you know, people like him, you know, they really have wise words, you know, saying that the industry can eat you alive if you don't stay smart about it. You know, they can take all your money and you become broke, you may look like you rich on the outside, but you know, you can become broke in the industry.
And get somebody to actually show you what's going on in it, because it's a real thing. You don't hear a lot of young people talking about things like I talk about, because they really haven't lived. They haven't gone through a lot of experiences yet, and we can't really expect them to. It's just not all a party, you know, alcoholism and promiscuity. Get some elders up in here and let's talk about all this. Distribution service. I mean, what do we really need record companies for? I mean,
yeah. And so, yeah, that was what Prince had to say about the music industry. And I hope y'all got something out of these videos that I shown about the music industry. And you know, please subscribe to my channel, Music Tips and Reviews with JG. Give me your comments, what you thought about what, you know, they said about you know, the music industry and how, you know, they navigated through the industry. So appreciate y'all for watching, and until next time, all right, peace.